Sheryl Connelly is a Michigan-born futurist who focuses her brain on global automotive trends. In her early life, she thought she would become an artist or practice law. However, when she landed an entry-level position with Ford Motor Company, it drove her down another path. Today, she helps her bosses figure out how Ford can take advantage of what is going to unfold in a fast-moving future. She is in Vancouver for the International Auto Show, and it is my pleasure to welcome Sheryl Connelly, Manager of Global Trends and Futuring for Ford Motor Company, to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure to be here.
Well, how nice to meet you. When you were a little girl, I doubt you thought you would grow up to be a futurist.
Oh, good God, no. No, actually, I did want to grow up to be an artist, and I grew up with very practical parents, and someone said that wasn't a financially prudent career. So I studied finance and then went on to law and then got an MBA, all with the hope of someday like finding you know, a dream job. And I found myself working for Ford, wholesaling cars, which was lovely, but I'm not particularly passionate about cars relative to most people who work for Ford. A lot of my colleagues talk about how blood runs, their oil runs through their veins. Right. So I wholesaled cars for a bit, and then literally stumbled onto this futuring job 8 years into my career with Ford, and I've been doing it for the last 8 years. I feel like I won the lottery.
I guess you did. You gave up starving artist
starving
for futuring. Now, what does it mean, futuring?
No, it's really, it has this very exotic sound to it, but in practical terms, I tell people it means that on a regular basis I have to remind people within the organization that no one can predict the future. Because when you build a car, it takes about 36 months for it to hit the road. Like if you and I sat here today and said, I have the best idea for a car, it might be the best idea today, it might not be so relevant 36 months out from now. And so my job is to help the designers, the engineers, people throughout the organization get into that mindset about what do we think customers are going to want 3, 5, 10 years from now. And you can do that not by predicting the future, but having these discussions about what are the range of possibilities, what are the trends that will shape our life, and you look at social, technological, economic, environmental, and political forces, because those are the things that will eventually cultivate our values, our attitudes, and our behaviors.
Okay, and when you do that, do you go around the world? Because it seems to be the new Fords are very Euro, a lot of Euro styling. So it seems to me that the car today is not just an American car or a Canadian car, it's a Euro car. True, not true?
It does. It has to be global. And in terms of just efficiency, we've been working off of globalizing our platform. So at one time, if you purchased, let's say, a Ford Focus, one in North America might be one different than the one in South America, or a different offering in Europe. But today we have globalized our platform so that you get the same vehicle and the same, you know, regardless of what market. I mean, there are some regional differences, but from an efficiency standpoint, that's really important and powerful for our investment. But also just in terms of instilling what the brand means. We want it to mean the same thing wherever you are in the world.
Did you come from a car family? Were people in your family car nuts?
I grew up in Michigan, and I don't know anyone in Michigan that isn't influenced by the car industry, and so Ford has always been a huge presence in my life. You know, so I think when I was looking for a job after graduating law school and getting my MBA, Ford was the only company I sent my resume to. And ironically, I actually sent to them and asked for a job in their tax compliance office. Because I thought
knew something about that.
Well, I thought that that's where all my degrees kind of intersected, and I'm so grateful that they wouldn't take me. But marketing did.
Well, and it seems to me your degrees do intersect in a sense, because being an artist, you work with the designers, you work with the engineers at Ford. When you try to figure out what's going to happen next, not a fad, but a trend, where do you go?
You know, we read a lot, and what happens if you do that long enough and you have a lens for these deep categories, so social, technological, economic, environmental, and political arenas, you just start to see patterns. And once you start becoming attuned to those patterns, they're everywhere. So I'll see a new product offering and I'll go, oh, that's addressing the aging population. Or I'll see a new marketing campaign and I'll say they're talking about changing physiology. Or just newspaper articles. So I'm constantly filtering it through that lens. And I think we have, you know, an informal database of about 200 trends. So whenever I read or see something, I'm constantly filing those things and going, this is powerful, this is attached to this emerging trend. So you start to see things on the horizon.
And so you do know the difference between a fad and a trend, obviously. That a fad might be something like the pet rock.
Yes.
It went away, and it went away forever.
But what a profitable fad it was.
Exactly. So when you talk to now all the futurists at Ford get together and they say, okay, here's the car we need to build. Here's what has to happen in the cabin of the car, the details around the lights, the millennials, the kids who are, what, under 30, will buy this kind of car. How do you know what kind of car a 30-year-old wants?
Oh, so you look at their lifestyle. You look at the generational cohort. So North America has the baby boomers, you've got the Gen Xers, you've got the millennials, and then the younger generation that some people refer to as Gen Next or Gen We. But there are things that are unique to each generation. So you and I were talking before the show about baby boomers have this love of automobiles. And that's because when they came of age, the car was such an iconic symbol of freedom and independence. And so they have a real emotional attachment to them, because when you purchase your first car, you know, if you're of the baby boomer era, that car meant that you were an adult. You know, you were recognized, you were forced to be contended with. But if you look today, millennials have a lot of other things that are drawing for their attention for their limited financial resources. So gaming systems, new cell phones, you've got the tablet, anything from Apple, of course, is of popularity with them. And so we think about their gateway purchase to adulthood or their freedom and independence is done through the cell phone.
Okay, so you say to Ford, gee, maybe we should put an iPad in the Ford.
Well, basically.
Maybe we've got to go to this market. We need gadgets and
that's
Wi-Fi
exactly
and all
what
of
we've
that.
done. So we attract the millennial consumer by making sure that we recognize that these mobile devices are their lifelines. They don't go anywhere without them. So if we want them in the car, we have to make sure that those devices can be seamlessly integrated. So we have a platform called Sync, and Sync is something that takes any Bluetooth-enabled device and seamlessly integrates it into your car so that you can activate it through your voice. So, for instance, if you and I were traveling and your MP3 players packed in your bag in the trunk of the vehicle, we could still say, play Nickelback, and it will come up without us ever, we don't have to unpack it, and it's all voice activated.
Wow.
Your hands stay on the wheel, your eyes on the road, so it's quite safe. It'll read incoming text messages for you, it'll stream weather advice, and then we have a secondary system called My Ford Touch or My Lincoln Touch, and that works just like an Apple iPad. You touch the screen to direct what you want the vehicle to do. So it'll take you to directions, it'll take you to your phone.
I drove the Titanium. The Ford people let me drive the Titanium for a couple days. Wow, it parks itself.
Yes.
It tries, well, it does. And me as a boomer, I say, I don't want the car to park. I want to park the car. You know, it's a different mentality, isn't it? Or you get inside a car and it looks like a spaceship, and you think, as a boomer zoomer, you might think simple. So at your company, you must have to say, yes, the zoomers, boomers, have a lot of money, and they like cars. So I have to think what appeals to them and to the 30-year-olds, or not.
Yes. So the boomers, whether they like it or not, are going to start dealing with the physiological effects of aging. And so that means reduced response time, impaired vision, limited range of motion. And so we have a lot of technology embedded to design it. So we get ahead of that trend, and we'll start talking about, okay, if we want to still appeal to the boomers, what are the things that we're going to need? And so we do things like a reverse sensing system, a rear view camera, because people can't always turn their neck, or things like the park assist. But we have to do it through what's called universal design, so that it has the same appeal to a 61-year-old as it might to a 16-year-old. You may not like our park assist because we found that our research shows that women are better parallel parkers than men.
Really?
Yes, so maybe the men in your life would have greater appeal to that park assist.
Well, what I found is my son-in-law, when he got in the Titanium, and I love that Titanium, don't get me wrong, but he got in, he was so into all the gadgets and the bells and the whistles, and the first thing he had to do was let the car park itself, right? And I'm thinking, is it an independence thing? Is it I'm a good parker thing? I don't know.
I think it's the appeal to the features and gadgets, right? The guys always love the technology.
And the music was on, and this was happening, and you know, no CDs. No, you download your music, you bring it, plug your phone in, do the thing, you have the music you want. Now you say you can talk to the car, and the car talks back.
Indeed. Indeed. So it's a new engagement, and that's when we think about, so boomer might love the thrill of the highway, you know, the wind in their hair, the open roads, I mean, that ideology.
No seatbelts.
No seatbelts. But a younger person says, no, you know, if you give me the choice of being behind the wheel of my iPhone or the wheel of a car, I'll take the iPhone all day long. And so we have to find ways to allow them to still have that social connection and engagement in terms of what they need to feel connected, but do it in a safe way.
Sure. And if one of your designers said, you know, I think we should go back to the future, the Ford Fairlane. A lot of memories, a lot of boomers. Will it sell?
Well, I actually think that nostalgia always plays an important role, and it plays a really important role when you have a lot of economic uncertainty. You know, so if you think about the impact of the 2008 global recession, what happens when you have an economic downturn is people return to their core values, right? So that's kind of family, health, wellness, spirituality, religion. So nostalgia plays really well in those time periods when people are trying to hold on to something, to a softer, kinder, gentler time. And so nostalgia can be seen in a lot of our design, but it always has to be, you know, improved. It can't be a return to the same old, same old. It has to be echoes of the past with a lot of future built into it.
Because I'm sure you study things like Edsel. Like, why didn't the Edsel work?
You know, it's
big flops in the car industry.
And the history can be, it can certainly be instructive in terms of lessons learned, but we have to, as a futurist, I actually spend a lot of time reminding people that we can't look to the future by watching the rearview mirror. Because there are things, there will be unprecedented changes that come about. Like if you think about the advent of the internet, you know, the new technologies, that history would never give us any inclination of what's coming. So I spend a lot of time in this what if space. I love when someone says to me, that'll never happen, because that's a great place to start, you know, to challenge people and say, well, what happens if you're wrong? What happens if that never actually does happen? And what happens if it happens a lot faster than we're prepared for?
Right. I know you've met Faith Popcorn, and when we come back, we'll talk about, she's a New York futurist, well, she's a world futurist, really, and an icon in the futurism biz. We'll return with Sheryl Connelly in town for the Vancouver International Auto Show.